tag the building. She honked again. Then she got out of her car and started yelling at them to stop it. They turned around and shouted obscenities at her. She got back into her car, telling the boys that she was calling the police. She did not notice another car behind her. The car pulled up next to her. The passenger window rolled down and 2 shots were fired. The 2 boys who had been watching walked over to the woman's car. One opened the driver's door and grabbed her purse. The other opened the passenger door and dug through the glove compartment. Then they calmly got into their friend's car and left the scene. It is said, if good people are silent, evil will win. This woman was not silent, yet evil won. The police caught a 19-year-old who they think fired the shots. He will be tried. If convicted, he will go to prison for 20 years, where he will get free food, housing, and medical care, and where he'll learn how to commit other crimes. But because the prisons are so overcrowded, he will probably get out in 10 years. So, at the age of about 30, he will be out committing more crimes, while 3 children and 8 grandchildren will never get to grow older with their grandma. For bravely speaking up, she was put down. People say that what goes around comes around. But how often does that happen to cold-blooded murderers? A woman is standing at a bus stop at noon. A van pulls up. A young man hops out of the van, grabs the woman's purse, gets back into the van, and it drives off. An elderly man is standing on the sidewalk in front of his home at 10:30 p.m. He is admiring the full moon. A car pulls up right in front of him and stops. 2 men get out. One man punches the old man in the mouth. The other man takes the man's wallet out of his pants. They get back into their car and drive off. A woman puts her laptop and purse into her car in her driveway at 3:15 p.m. She starts the car and then remembers that she forgot to turn off the TV. She goes back into her house, turns off the TV, and comes back to her car. Her purse and her laptop are gone. The Department of Transportation built an elevated freeway on top of the 110 freeway in Los Angeles. The new freeway is supported by more than 100 thick concrete columns. Since the freeway was built, each column has been tagged with graffiti and repainted at least 10 times. Late one night, someone managed to raise a heavy metal shopping cart to the top of a flagpole outside a supermarket. The next morning, a 56-year-old supermarket worker hooked up the U.S. flag and started to raise it by pulling on the rope. A second later, the cart crashed down on her. She was permanently paralyzed. When released from the hospital, she told a TV reporter that she forgave the culprit. "Please don't do this again," she said. "You might kill someone, and that would be terrible." A police spokesman admitted that they might not ever find the prankster. No one knows for sure, but some experts estimate that half of the crimes committed in the U.S. go unreported. Half of those reported never result in the criminal being found. Half of those in which the criminal is found never result in convictions. Half of the convictions result in reduced or full sentences. Half of the full sentences eventually become reduced sentences because of good behavior or overcrowded prisons that result in early releases. "The problem," said Wyatt Earp, a retired police officer, "is that punishment is not swift enough or severe enough. All they get is a slap on the wrist. Too many judges are soft on criminals. We need to change the law so that there is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Even criminals understand physical pain. If I were president, I would do many things to teach these punks a lesson. Prisons would have no heat and no air conditioning. Let the jerks freeze in the winter and bake in the summer. They would get one peanut butter and jelly sandwich for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. This way, We don't have to worry about prisoners using utensils to injure guards or other inmates or dig out of prison. And no crunchy or organic peanut butter either, only the cheap stuff. Their only beverage would be water, no soda, milk, coffee, or tea, and no fancy bottled water either. Their water would be straight from the faucet. Visitors to Disneyland in Southern California see lots of life-sized cartoon characters such as Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Pluto the dog. Most parents take their small kids right up to these characters. If the child doesn't start bawling because he or she is afraid of the cartoon character, the parents will take snapshots or videos of their kid with Snow White, Grumpy, Goofy, or others. Often the camera will be rolling even when the child looks afraid or is crying. Last week, Eva Gunderson took her 7-year-old son Billy Bob to Disneyland. Pluto was the first character they met once they got inside. Eva asked Billy Bob if he wanted a picture with Pluto. Billy Bob said no. He said Pluto's tail was too skinny and his nose was too big. Eva told him to go ahead, please, just so she could show Daddy. Billy Bob reluctantly agreed. He went over to Pluto and sat on his lap. Eva said, "Say cheese," and both Billy Bob and Pluto said the magic word. Then, as Billy Bob got off Pluto's lap, he grabbed Pluto's round black plastic nose and ripped it off Pluto's costume. Pluto yelled, "Ouch!" even though it didn't hurt. Billy Bob started running, and Pluto started chasing him. Just as Pluto got close enough to grab him, Billy Bob kicked Pluto between his legs. Pluto fell to the ground, groaning. This time he really was in pain. Eva got it all on video cam. "That was great, honey," she told her son as they walked off to find more characters. "Wait till Daddy sees this. He'll be so proud of you." A new invention called Arm Yourself is in arcades in Japan. It is a mechanical arm wrestling machine. In the old days, fairs and carnivals usually had a test your strength contest that required a player to swing a small sledgehammer as hard as he could to ring a bell and get a prize. The Japanese invention also challenges a player's strength. Players can set it to 4 different levels: baby, girl, man, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. The mechanical arm operates at half strength for the first 10 seconds. Baby, for example, would be half baby or 50% full strength for 10 seconds initially. This gives the human time to evaluate his mechanical opponent and usually allows him to win, says the inventor. But after 10 seconds elapse, the mechanical arm instantly achieves full strength, so that weak baby suddenly becomes strong baby. That comes as a surprise to the human, said the inventor. If you watch the human compete, you will see a look of surprise come over his face at the machine's sudden burst of strength. It's funny to see. Unfortunately for some players, the look of surprise is followed by the look of pain as the steel and plastic arm breaks their flesh and blood arm. 2 players recently went to the hospital. The inventor said that he wouldn't put a warning sign on the machine. "It's not the machine's fault," he said. "Humans often think that they're smarter, faster, and stronger than they actually are. I think it's a good lesson that they are learning. Many refuse to combat the machine at the baby or girl level because they think that they're equal to the man or Arnold level. They don't know their limitations. They're proud and foolish, and some of them have to pay the price for their pride." Semper Fi means always faithful. It's the motto of the Marine Corps, which is a segment of the U.S. Navy. The Marines do whatever the federal government tells them to do, and the government always talks about how important the Marines are and how grateful the government is. So when a former Marine, James Reed, recently applied for a Purple Heart for a wound that he received while serving in the Korea War more than 50 years ago, He expected no problems, but a Navy official said that they had no more Purple Hearts. If Reed wanted one, he could buy it at a military supply store. "They're only $42, said Arthur Chertoff. "It's not exactly like buying a new car." However, the 75-year-old Reed subsists on a military pension that barely covers his rent. His daughter and son send him money for food, transportation, and other expenses. "Well then, let your kids pay for it," Chertoff said when Reed told him that he depended on his kids for living expenses. So Reed asked his son for $42 for the medal. His son got so upset about the ungratefulness of the Navy that he called the local newspaper. The local newspaper printed a front-page article about how the Navy couldn't be bothered to pay for and present Reed his Purple Heart 50 years after his injury. Network television news picked up the story. The Navy, of course, was immediately embarrassed. Somehow, officials found the money and the time to buy Reed his Purple Heart and even make a ceremonial presentation. "We are always eager and happy to show that we take care of our own," said the broadly smiling Chertoff as he presented Reed the medal in front of TV news cameras. "Thank you so much for your service to your country." It sounds incredible, but the small country of Greece seems to be burning down. Police believe arsonists are responsible for at least half of the fires. 30 people have died so far, many of them trapped in their homes or their cars. Residents all over Greece have called fire departments, police, and media about fires surrounding their homes, but there have simply not been enough firemen to respond to all these fires. The government has asked for aid from France, Italy, and Germany. Greek ruins that are almost 3,000 years old are in danger of being burnt down. Fires surround Athens, the capital city. The hillsides are ablaze, and there seems to be no end in sight. Entire villages have been destroyed. There has been no rain for 2 months, and the trees are so dry that just the heat from an approaching fire causes them to explode into flames. Police have arrested 3 suspected arsonists. One suspect, oddly enough, was still complaining about the 2004 Olympics. He had applied to carry the torch into the stadium and light the fire to officially start the games. His application was ignored. "You have to be somebody," was the reply he got when he called the Olympic Committee in Athens. "And you're not. You're nobody," an official told him. The man was in jail for 3 years for trying to blow up the committee's headquarters. Yesterday, police caught him walking away from a new fire with an empty gas can in his hands. "I'm nobody, huh?" he told the police. "Well, I'm somebody now." I was sound asleep. My grandfather appeared in a dream. He asked why I had never visited him and Grandma at the cemetery. He said that even my mom hadn't visited since October 4th, Grandma's birthday. He told me that when I was young, I had walked out into a pond and slipped underwater. He had rescued me. He said Grandma was supposed to be watching me, but that she had gotten sick all of a sudden and was throwing up. It was probably the fresh blackberries they had picked and eaten earlier. Grandma had a bad stomach. My parents were out on a boat in the pond. They did not know that Grandpa had saved me until they got back to shore. I was in a towel, and my clothes were drying on bushes. My brown and white Buster Brown shoes were also soaked. I was only 3 years old, Grandpa said. My parents were angry at first, but when they saw that Grandma was still feeling sick, they forgave her.